From the Skyterra Wellness Retreat, this is the Inspired Intentions Podcast, where we help people build the skills and mindset to live a healthy life. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's episode, if you've been enjoying our podcast, take a moment to rate and review. It may seem like a small thing, but our ratings and reviews make a huge difference in the quality of our show. They help us reach more listeners like you so we can continue bringing you more amazing content. So, if you've found inspiration, learned something new, or just love tuning in every week, please rate the Inspired Intentions Podcast 5 stars and leave us a review and even share with a friend. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Now let's get into the show.
Inspired Intentions listeners, this is the last of our 5-part series that we've been releasing on how to live forever. This is actually, I think, what we've been leading up to the whole time. Because as I've mentioned, I know you've heard, we recently released our new website. And along with doing that, we decided to refine our pillars in a way that we could talk about them a little bit more clearly, simplify the wording. But most importantly, we wanted to highlight the importance of sleep and rest. Before we had woven sleep and rest kind of through our other pillars, and we really wanted to give it its own pillar. We wanted to give it its own attention. And so that's what our episode is about today. And I am happy and proud to introduce again Teresa Osler, our general manager. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being here. Listeners, again, this is the last of our How to Live Forever series. And we have already released our How to Live Forever movement, nutrition, mindfulness, and play. So if you haven't heard those yet already, please go back and listen. You can listen to them in any order. But today we're going to talk about sleep and rest and why it's so important.
I love it.
Teresa, you came to the podcast booth today with something that you were really excited about. Would you like to start there?
I would, because I really appreciate the work of Dr. Matthew Walker in the book Why We Sleep. Dr. Matthew Walker is a neuroscientist who loves sleep. And in his book, he says, amazing breakthrough! Scientists have discovered a revolutionary new treatment that makes you live longer. It enhances your memory and makes you more creative. It makes you look more attractive. It keeps you slim and lowers food cravings. It protects you from cancer and dementia. It wards off colds and the flu. And we could also add COVID as of now. It lowers your risk of heart attacks and stroke, not to mention diabetes. You'll even feel happier, less depressed, and less anxious. Are you interested? When I read this, all I could think about are the millions of ads that are always coming to us with all these fast fixes for life.
Yeah.
And guess what the answer is? It's sleep. Something we have the opportunity to do every single day.
It's so important.
Yes. And in fact, Dr. Walker goes further and says it is the single most important thing you can do to reset your brain and your body health every day. The single most important thing. And yet, people like me used to give it very little importance in their life. And
so let's talk about that, Teresa. And I hope this is okay to share. We've talked on the podcast before about Skyterra University, which is our internal program to help our professionals with public speaking skills and giving information to our guests in a way that guests are most likely to receive and remember after they leave Skyterra. And one of the things that we talk about is how important it is to keep your presentation up to date, to be constantly including new science, and for you yourself to be a practitioner of what it is that you're teaching to our guests.
yes.
And when we asked you to do our Sleep Redefined presentation, you were horrified. And tell us a little bit about that, and then kind of why that's been so beneficial, I think, to our presentation and to our guests.
Well, sleep has, I would say I still have a difficult time with sleep. I work on it every single day. And yet when we came together to start creating Skyterra, I kind of wore not sleeping as a badge of honor.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do.
Well, yes. And one of my, recently I was listening to another book about sleep, and the author brought up a quote that I used to use back in my 20s, and that is, I can sleep when I'm dead. And it just took me back to those days. I really feel like I really came out of my childhood believing sleep was for the weak, that sleeping was a lazy thing to do, and that I wasn't going to sleep. And I have a really big FOMO, fear of missing out, and just really struggled with sleep. And I loved another term. I read an article just a few months ago, and it starts out, if you wear not sleeping as a badge of honor, you are in trouble. And I really relate to that because I did. I used to wear it as a badge of honor because I felt like it showed how strong I was. And with all the information I have now, that was a weakness for me and potentially created some long-term health issues that are not easy to turn around.
Yeah.
So,
and I think too, with your profession, and for a lot of people who work a lot, your profession as a nurse, not sleeping, you probably had long shifts, possibly night shifts or overnight. Yeah.
Well, I worked night shifts for 17 years.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed was that I would use food to help me stay awake, food and diet caffeine. And, we know that those things are not for health seekers. And yet it helped me stay awake. So, yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. So we are going to benefit from your lived experience and just again from the science that's out there about how important rest and sleep are. And I really want to start in the place where we've started with our other episodes in this How to Live Forever series, which is why is it so important for sleep and rest in terms of increasing longevity, improving health and wellness, and why is it such an important pillar for Skyterra? So much so that we have reshuffled things in our hopes to be able to focus on it even more.
Well, I think we can go into it two ways. Number one, sleep is a performance enhancer. Our bodies must have sleep to rejuvenate, to replenish, for creative thought. Our brain is meant to solve problems. And if our brain is on fire all 24/7, it doesn't have a chance to get the toxins out and to rest, to just reset, and we're not as efficient. There was a great study that showed less than 7 hours of sleep, 15% less efficient. Less than 6 hours of sleep, 30% less efficient than your counterparts who are getting enough sleep every day. So for no other reason than to have an exciting, efficient life, we need sleep. Our blood needs to be cleansed. Our muscles, our bones, all of those repair things happen during sleep. So, gosh, I can't even think. I love the quote, sleep is a wonder drug.
Yeah.
And, we don't need to take anything else. We just need to close our eyes.
Get enough sleep.
Yes.
With the launch of our new website, we are in the process of redoing our presentation so that everything is branded cohesively in terms of our colors and our fonts, and we just felt like it was time for a refresh. And when it came to reformatting your Sleep Redefined presentation, you had a request that I thought really was a great visualization of how important sleep is. And that was you wanted movement pillar to come in first, and then nutrition, mindfulness, and play kind of in a circle, and then sleep you wanted to come in underneath all of them.
I love that because, Sue, our owner and founder, and my sister, we have always been health seekers. And so we would never go a day without getting our 10,000 steps. And we would never not eat our 3 nutritious meals. We are so focused. I mean, we used to be known as boot campers. I mean, we loved the more exercise, the better. And we thought we were creating health. We thought we were doing it right. And to find out that it's very important. Fitness is important. In fact, it helps you with your sleep. Nutrition, very, very important. Timing of your meals, very, very important. Doing things you love, finding joy in moving your body, very, very important. All of those are so important. And yet, not sleeping, leaving that one thing out, you might as well not be moving. You might as well be eating junk because of the amount of damage it is doing to your body. A great study that showed just a few days of poor sleep gives you the same metabolism as someone with type 2 diabetes.
My goodness.
Yes. I mean, it's crazy. And to be honest with you, very humbling to find out that the very thing I was pushing away could really bring me all of those performance-enhancing things that I was wanting from my fitness, from my nutrition, from all of the studying I was doing. The very thing I was pushing off to the side was really the number one answer to my desire to live a healthy life and to be a person on a wellness journey.
I think that's really beautiful, T, because you think back to, 2015 era, Sue and Teresa, when you were talking about opening Skyterra and what you came to that experience with. Like you said, you were boot campers.
Yes.
And with your 10,000 steps and making sure that you're eating healthy. And then through Skyterra and everything that you've learned since we've opened and that we've been able to work on to giving our guests, just here's this answer. And what a profound answer that it is. To your point, the foundation of everything else that you thought that we would be teaching primarily here. What are the long-term health risks associated with chronic sleep deprivation? So you've talked about, what happens when you miss 1 or 2 days of sleep, but what about if it's been much longer? What happens?
Well, I mean, we can go on and on. I mean, let's just start with obesity. A direct causal link between not sleeping and obesity. As I mentioned, the metabolic derangement that happens in our body just from a few days of not sleeping. But what if it's long term? What if it's every day for days and days and days? And not only, and with the metabolic derangement, we see cellular aging. We see changes in your skin. We see cognitive changes. Very not sleeping, especially in your 40s and 60s, is directly related to dementia and Alzheimer's. And, sometimes I hate to talk about all the things that not sleeping will do to your body because I feel sad about it.
Yeah.
And yet I feel passionate about it because I want people like me to gain an understanding and not feel shame. I felt shame at first, like I was weak, and I had to say, wait a minute, this is who you were. It doesn't have to be your future. So let's stop it today and let's work on it today and work on it every day. And so if you have any of these health problems, gaining an understanding that don't start going to the gym first. Don't yes, eat healthy. Yes, go to the gym, but your number one thing is to look at your sleep hygiene.
Mm.
Look at what you can do. Not sleeping is associated with cardiovascular disease, with hypertension, with metabolic syndrome, with insulin resistance, with type 2 diabetes, with cognitive disorders, with anxiety, with depression. All of the, oh, did I say hypertension? Because that's a huge
Yeah.
one. And so many people are on medications for these things. And medications are wonderful. And yet, if people would slow their lives down and give sleep the importance that it needs in their day, they could potentially increase their lifespan, decrease their illness, improve the way they feel, and eventually, maybe even with the help of their doctor, come off some of these medications. Now, medications are great. Medications have a place and a time, but every medication has a benefit and a risk. And your medical provider who is prescribing those has the job of weighing the risks versus the benefits of those medications. The medications are meant to improve your life and improve your wellness, and yet at some point, it's your job to take control of some of the things that are within your control,
Mhm.
within your purview, and do as much as you can to improve your health and improve your wellness, and most importantly, improve the way you feel every single day.
And it is, from the outside, such a simple thing. And yet not.
Oh. I mentioned to you, Rachel, I work on this every single day,
I know.
and I keep learning more and more things about it. And I do think that had this been something I started when I was really young, it wouldn't be as hard as it is now. And yet, I think I want our listeners and our guests to understand that I get how hard it is. Just go to sleep.
Yeah.
It's not you. Our job is to set the stage for sleep so that our body can get the rest it needs and deserves.
So let's talk about setting the stage.
Mhm.
And if I can just go back for 1 minute again
Mhm.
and just repeat again, Teresa, I think what makes it's obvious how passionate you are about this topic. I know it is for our guests when they come to your Sleep Redefined talk every week. But I think, too, this is what the fact that you struggle with it and
Mhm.
continue to work on it every single day, I think, is what makes it resonate so much for everyone who comes to Skyterra and for everyone who's listening to this episode, too. This doesn't come easy for you. You don't just close your eyes at 9 o'clock every night and fall asleep within 2 minutes. So I think we're all going to benefit. And thank you for sharing so much of what you've been through.
Well, thanks for having me. What's interesting is the more you think about it, the more you work on it, the more information you get, the more ideas you get.
Yeah.
And so if you, listener, have a sleep issue, start slow. Start with one thing. That's what I did. And see how you're feeling And then as you start feeling better, then you can keep building on it and educate yourself. It is amazing how important it is to keep hearing other ideas and other suggestions, and try not to be anxious about the hard parts. That's why I sometimes struggle sharing all of the difficult parts about not sleeping, because that can be overwhelming. And you can just throw your hands up and say, I don't even want to try because I've already ruined everything. Well, not true. There was a great article that I just read the other day that talked about people who live into their 90s. And I always thought, oh, that would be so hard to live until you're 90. And then after reading that, I got kind of excited to live into my 90s, because if I can live into my 90s and feel great, and that what they said was these 90-year-olds have consistent sleep. They prioritize their sleep. And they have great lab work. Their lipid profiles are all really great. And I thought about being that 90-year-old who's still walking and talking and squatting and doing all of the amazing things in life. We don't have to be saddled with feeling lousy, feeling anxious, feeling depressed. We have control over something that could give us amazing lives until forever.
Yes. So how do we start? How do we set the stage? You mentioned that you did one thing. For folks who struggle with this, where should they start?
I think the number one thing is light. I think we have to really focus on light. And to focus on light, we need to align ourselves with our own personal circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm, circadian clock, they're the same thing, but every living thing has a circadian clock. It is your wake up, your sleep time. And the human circadian rhythm really is sleeping when the moon is up and being awake when the sun is up. So recognizing the importance of sunshine in our lives, and recognizing that in the world we live in now, light has become a 24/7 thing. It has given us life. We can be up all hours of the day and night. I can work all night and play all day in the sunshine. And what that has done is has eroded sleep. And many people will be on their screens. And guess what is emitted from our screens?
Light.
Yes, blue and yellow light, just the same light from the sun. And that blue and yellow light encourages our body to start secreting our daytime hormones. So if we're getting those blue and yellow light rays into our eyes at 9 o'clock at night, then our circadian clock thinks it's daytime. Hey, let's get going. Let's get some cortisol flowing through that body so that this person can live this amazing daytime life. And so really recognizing the importance of light, especially LED light. There's so much LED. And having an awareness so that a few hours before we are getting ready to go to bed, we start dimming those lights. If you've ever been in a lovely restaurant and the lights dim around 7 o'clock, well, our body deserves that same ambiance. We really deserve that same respect, and to start powering down those devices and start recognizing how that will affect our circadian rhythm, and really align ourselves with what our body is meant to do, what our body wants to do. That's probably the number one thing. One of the things I love the very most is at Skyterra, we take a little metabo walk after every meal. And if we have our breakfast about an hour after waking up in the morning, we can get out, take our metabo walk, get that sunshine into our eyes. And we've got these little neurons under our eyes that see that blue and yellow light, or see is not quite the right word, but that's okay. And triggers all of our daytime hormones and trigger our nighttime hormones around 9 o'clock at night. And then we can have our lunchtime metabo walk. And then at dinner time, we can get the orange and red rays from the setting sun. That again triggers our circadian rhythm and these little neurons in our eyes for our nighttime hormones to be able to start that resting process and get our body set up to go to sleep. Other things we can do is make sure we are looking at our bedroom, making sure that our bedroom is meant for sleep. A really lovely guest told me last week, my bed is my safe place, and I like to work there, and I like to read there, and I like to watch TV there. And one thing that really has kind of been a newer thing that I've been focusing on is if our body sees our bed as an entertainment source, then we're not going to want to slow down and go to sleep. So really making sure that our bed is meant for sleep, that we've got really amazing bedding, that we are careful about our bedclothes, that we have the appropriate temperature. Some people benefit from a cooling mattress pad that will help them in the middle of the night. But just really focusing on bed being a place of sleep. And I love the idea of cell phones not being allowed in bed. Wouldn't that be? I think I told you my phone died for 26 hours. And I always just kind of closed down the night with a little meditation on my phone. And I had to do my own meditation. I had the best night of sleep that night than I'd had in almost a month. And that was a wake-up call for me about how much I'm relying on that phone. And then in the morning, I like to wake up and, let's read the news. And I really just had to focus on my morning meditation and my morning breath work, and powerful day. And so a big recognition that if we're utilizing some of these entertainment things, our body will get kind of excited and worked up. So really calming down in the evening, making sure that we don't have access to those stimulating things from at least 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., very minimum. What else?
You've talked about avoiding not only so. Alan, just when we were having the conversation about your phone dying, Alan, who's in the booth with us off mic, described your cell phone as a stress delivery device, which I thought was so interesting, and it's so true. And there are other stress delivery devices as well.
Yes, televisions, computers, cell phones. Something very, very important is the evening news. Have you ever watched the news and then been able to slow down and close your brain off?
It's tough.
It is really tough. So avoiding news in the evening. What about a crucial conversation? Have you ever, never have an important conversation with someone you care about after 8 o'clock at night.
No.
It will not go well,
Right.
number one. Number two, you will not sleep. And then tomorrow will be worse. And so just really focusing on that. I have to really be careful with exciting books. I love to read at night, but I don't want to close the book. And so I have to only read boring at night and be really cautious that the light is not shining in my eyes, but shining on the words of the book. And that helps me to be able to fall asleep. One thing I talk about a lot in my class that has been a difference maker for me for a lot of years, even before I started working on my sleep, is a brain dump. Have you heard of a brain dump? It's pretty magical. You can do it in two different ways. If you are a worker, doing a brain dump before you leave work, our brain is meant to solve problems.
Mm.
And if we walk out the door of our workspace thinking about work, we often take work home with us. So, what I like to do is, and you'll see all of these sticky notes all over my desk, but I just take a sticky note and I write down everything I didn't get done today, every single thing. And if I'm really efficient, I will give myself a 1, 2, 3, so that the minute I walk into work the next day, my brain knows exactly where to go. Oh, this is what I've got to work on today. I don't have to walk out that door worrying about getting those 3 top things done because I've left it on the paper. And once you've done it a few times and your brain knows that you do that, you leave work at work and then you go home and you can live your best life at home without worrying about work. And then at home, do the same thing. Because I hear a lot of our guests say they can't go to sleep because they're worrying. What if? Or trying to, or having a conversation with someone 25 times in your mind that you never have in person.
Yes.
Very, very harmful for our sleep. So you can do the same thing at home. Write down appointments. I mean, don't pay your bills before you go to sleep?
No.
That's not going to help sleep. Write down everything you need to do tomorrow and then prioritize 1, 2, 3 so that when you get up, let's have that crucial conversation or pay that bill or whatever you need to do. And that's great. Last thing is cooling your room.
Yes.
And cooling your body. Ryan talks a lot about cold plunge.
Yes.
And boy, there is so much science really supporting cooling your body off and that helping you sleep. So there's a few ways I've tried it. I'm not a cold plunger yet. Ryan is getting under my skin, so one day I might be. But there are a couple of ways that I do it. One is if I take a hot shower at night, I will sometimes turn the cold on, and it is not too bad.
Yeah.
And the other way, if I take a hot bath, I like to just let the water evaporate until I'm chilled, and that cools my body off. So instead of toweling dry, I think that helps a lot. And making sure that if you've got a thermostat that can be adjusted, it can be nice and warm when you get into bed, but your body temperature needs to drop 1 to 2 degrees to fall asleep. And so supporting that and then sleeping in a cold environment really supports sleep.
What about when I was younger, I used to have a lot of anxiety around falling asleep, and it was because I was afraid of being alone. I was afraid of everybody else sleeping, and I got very worked up. And one of the things that my parents had suggested was, well, why don't you listen to a talk radio program? And I actually still do that to fall asleep. But what about that anxiety of, okay, I know how important this is. I know how important it is for my health, for my long-term longevity. And I've done all of the things that we suggested and it's not working.
Well, I love that you brought that up because it's actually the part that I added about maybe a year and a half ago that has been the biggest difference maker for me, and that is an evening connect. So for the guests that have been at Skyterra, you'll know that we start our morning at 8:30 with Connect. And Connect is an opportunity to reconnect to our body, reconnect to our breath, reconnect to the earth. We will do a 5-minute breathwork practice. We'll do some stretching and just get ready for the day. Well, about a year and a half ago, I thought, what if I did that at night? Because at that time, I would wake up in the morning and I would just, my back would hurt and my feet would hurt. And I thought, what is going on here? And so I started doing an evening connect. And in my evening connect, I do reconnect to my body and I do a 5-minute breathwork practice. And I actually started meditating back in the very beginning of Skyterra. And at that time, I would meditate for 45 minutes to
That's a long
hour and
time.
a half. And now I just do 10 minutes.
Mhm.
But I really look forward to that. What I recommend is that you find what speaks to you.
Mm.
For some people, it is a story. For other people, it is a guided meditation. Others, it's a sound decibel or a white noise, the sound of the ocean, sound of rain. Rain would drive me crazy, but you find you. That's the other thing I found even with guided meditation is it has to be the right voice and it has to be
Mm.
the right level.
Yeah.
If it's too loud, it excites me. My brain is like, oh, let's wake up. If it's too low, my brain is trying to solve the problem. So
Yeah.
it has to be the right sound. Couple of suggestions I have. One is that it's time limited because if it's too long and you wake up, your brain will want to go back and find out what you missed.
Mhm.
So you just have to be cautious that it is time limited and that if you fall asleep, it will shut off and it doesn't continue to go throughout the night. That really, really helps. The other thing that really, really helps is to have a breathwork practice. There are many, many different kinds of breathwork practice. I like to practice different things all the time. The most common is box breathing in
Mhm.
4, hold 4, out 4, hold 4. That to me is like I find myself just kind of falling into that. But the one I really love that I feel triggers the parasympathetic nervous system versus our sympathetic or our fight or flight nervous system is the 478. It's a prolonged exhalation, and the prolonged exhalation is what triggers that parasympathetic or that I'm safe.
Mm.
And when you can just practice that, it's in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. And sometimes, if you're feeling really anxious, it's too hard to focus that much. So, some people will just go in 3, out 6, in 3, out 6, or even in 2, out 4. And then, as you start feeling your body relax after the first couple of rounds, you'll just feel your shoulders slow down.
Yeah.
And when you're focusing on that breath work, hopefully you can let your mind just go
Yeah.
and not have to keep telling those stories and meditation is the same way. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I can't meditate." Well, one of the best things, take a preliminary meditation course. They're fairly quick, but one of the most important things you learn about meditation is you want to let your thought go for a few seconds. And then it's normal for the brain to go away. And then your job is to bring it back. Oh, I've
Mhm.
gone away. Come back. And then let your brain not think for a minute or 1 second. And then it'll start going away. And the job of that is to bring it
Bring
back.
it back. Yeah.
And sometimes a breathwork practice or a meditation bringing you back to the present instead of the worries, the anxieties, the what ifs will help you get into sleep and go to sleep. The other thing is getting into a sleep position.
Mm.
One of my favorite guided meditations encourages you to put a hand on each shoulder in your sleep position, that it's a grounding way.
Mm.
And I think that that is really powerful. and your body recognizing that this is your sleep position. This means sleep for you. All of those are ideas that I had in my evening routine. Last but not least is legs up the wall.
You love legs
I
up the wall.
love legs up the wall. It was one of the best things I learned just shortly after we opened Skyterra, because in our bodies, especially as we age, we sometimes fluid will just accumulate in our legs. We're up on our legs moving all day long, and when we lay flat, that fluid redistributes, and then often a cause of us having to get up several times in the middle of the night. And I don't think it happens as much for people who are young, but people as they're aging will often tell me, oh, I'm up all night going to the bathroom. And so really recognizing that that's normal. And yet not normal. When I say normal, it's normal to need to go to the bathroom because you're finally flat. But if you can put into your evening routine some legs up the wall, you get some of that extra fluid redistributed before bed, and then empty your bladder before you go to bed. Even if you don't have an urge, a healthy bladder often has plenty of fluid. What it also means, though, is that we must be getting our fluid in during our daytime hours. That, again, supports our circadian rhythm, as does mealtime and a meal routine. All of that supports our circadian rhythm and supports our sleep. So legs up the wall, emptying our bladder in our evening time routine, and talking about meal routine. This is a new thing, and this is something I'm actually working on. Many of us, and I hear this from guests all the time, sometimes we get home 6, 7 o'clock at night, and then try to eat dinner, and then try to go to sleep. And something that is disturbing the restorative nature of our sleep is having food in our bellies too close to sleep.
Yeah.
So there's some strong recommendations to avoiding alcohol 2 to 3 hours before bed, avoiding food 2 to 3 hours before bed, and really giving your intestines, your body, that 10 to 12 hours of no food in. It supports your metabolism. It supports your insulin glucose metabolism. It supports your digestive system. It supports your circadian rhythm. Supports your sleep, most importantly.
We've given a ton of really good information, but here's the key question. How much sleep? So how much is optimal? We're talking about, how to live forever, how to improve your longevity, how to improve your health and wellness. How much sleep should people be getting? And does this vary by individual?
It really does. And I encourage people to find their best day and figure out what that is. And I had that happen a while ago, and it was 8 hours and 2 minutes. And I felt alive. I felt on fire. And so the recommendation is really 7 to 9. Recently, I even heard 7.5 to 9.
Interesting.
What is interesting is that really less than 7 is associated with health issues. Interestingly, greater than 10 is associated with the same health issues.
Oh, that is interesting.
Isn't that interesting? And very much associated with anxiety and depression. So really giving yourself a go-to-sleep time and then fixing your wake-up time to support the amount that your body needs really supports your health. And as I mentioned earlier, those 90-year-olds had that consistent sleep schedule. And they didn't just wake up in the morning and lay around in bed. They got up, they had things to do, they had a routine. Their body knew what to expect.
And we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, Dr. Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Any other recommendations for people who are looking for more information?
Well, I really love this is a new book. In fact, I've read parts of it. I haven't read it cover to cover yet. I'm still in the middle because I read the beginning and the end, because the second to last chapter was about sleep. But it is Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia, and I'll tell you, it is profound.
Mm.
Every single thing that he talks about to support our longevity is exactly what we do at Skyterra. It is that consistent movement. That is nourishing your body with good food. It is doing things you love because you want to do them. It is strength training.
Yes.
And it is getting the sleep you need. And then he ends with our emotional health.
Mm.
And we know that visceral fat is directly linked to sleep and stress. And so that affects our life. And so anything we can do is so important. So I recommend those. And then there are lots of science out there. I think it's always a good idea to just look at the best information. There are several podcasts. All of the Skyterra Inspired Intentions podcasts are a good way to get started. You can go on a walk and pop those in your ear and just find one thing that speaks to you that would be easy to put into your routine, because then once you're doing that, you can continue to build, and you can listen to another Inspired Intentions podcast and find something else that you can add to your routine. And before you know it, you will be feeling on fire.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you for speaking so much about your own personal experience, too.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I can be a little obnoxious when I am just passionate about wellness and about living our best lives. And I just want everybody around me and everyone I love to get the very best lives they possibly can.
You deserve it. You deserve it, and our listeners deserve it.
And you deserve it. And you deserve it, Alan. We all deserve it.
Thanks so much, Teresa. This has been wonderful.
Thanks, Rachel.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The Inspired Intentions podcast is a production of Skyterra Wellness Retreat. Special thanks to our executive producer, Alan Broyhill. Send us your questions and comments to inspiredintentions@skyterrawellness.com. Subscribe on iTunes and everywhere podcasts can be found. If someone you know might benefit from this podcast, share Inspired Intentions with them and give us a 5-star rating. Join us next week as we cut through the unrealistic noise on diets and fitness and show you how healthy living fits seamlessly into your already busy life. Thanks for listening.